Hey kids, it's me again with another shelf reading. This one's a bit different. It's a special one to me because it's of a bin of basically of that contains a copy of everything I've ever published. I think pretty much everything. It's actually been a little while since I've dug through the thing. I've just kind of gotten into the habit of, if I make something, I toss a copy in the bin and forget about it. So there'll be some crazy old stuff in here probably that I haven't seen in a while. I hope you'll pardon the self-indulgence, but I just discovered this bin. Well, I mean, I always know where it is, but I was moving it around recently because been moving stuff around. And I thought it might be fun to do one of these videos about it. So I'm just going to start at the top and we'll dig our way down through history, although it's probably jumbled up somewhat. Right at the top is a magazine called Uppercase. Now, I did not publish this magazine, but what I did do was contribute this picture of a game board that I made. This issue was themed around people making stuff, I think, or maybe that's what every issue was. Anyway, it was nice to have that immortalized in a fancy magazine. I wish that they had seen fit to, you know, either pay or give some kind of creator copy of the magazine. I actually had to buy this, which is not great. Anyway, I'm not sure that magazine exists anymore. It happens, you know. It's tough. This is a copy of the second issue of Proxima, which was a comics anthology that I published with a local group of comics people that I would meet with at Radstorm a few years ago. That group has since been kind of supplanted by a much bigger and much better organized group. What do they call themselves? The Froghorn. Foghorn. Yeah, and Froghorn is the little mascot guy. Foghorn Comics Collective. Um, I I actually helped them create a similar anthology, which we published. I guess it was earlier this year. God, it's time. Anyway, so Proxima is also kind of a nod to Appa Centauri, which was my how I got started in making zines and stuff. I used to joke that Proxima would be a good name for a spin-off of Appa Centauri, which Proxima is, I think, astronomically speaking, I think Proxima is our nearest star that isn't our sun, something like that. Um, Here's a print. Pretty self-explanatory. If you're from Nova Scotia, we have this trail system, trails. It's actually highway trails. There's the Glooscap Trail, the Evangeline Trail. Is there like a shore trail or something? I forget what they all are. And I made this up as a kind of joke for our provincial food, the donair. Every so often, I'm tempted to put a bunch of those up around town, but I don't want to confuse people. Here is a copy of the. I did a collection of my first mini comic series, Dregs, which was basically just an anthology of short comics, just like I publish now. But that one, the original, as you'll see, because they're further down in here, the original copies of Dregs were actually half letter size. So the artwork was being shrunk way down. And then after 4 issues of that, I was like, you know what, fuck this. I'm going to publish at this size. So I did 2 more issues at kind of magazine size. And this is kind of a best of the first 4 issues at the larger size. It even had a little custom stamp there that my friend Charlie carved for me back in the day. Thank you, Charlie. This is St. John Education Center Literary Magazine. I guess I must have contributed to this, a thing called The Right Stuff. It's kind of a local literary magazine that these people published. And I must have helped out with this probably from a comics perspective. Yeah, there I am. I was a workshop mentor, apparently. Cool. Lots of people ask me to do workshops in making comics, and I'm happy to do it. If that's something that you would like me to do, either virtually or in person, assuming I'm anywhere near you, feel free to reach out and let me know. Yeah, I don't know if I actually contributed anything to this magazine. I think I just was a. I think I just helped with one of the sessions, so they gave me a copy of this, which is nice. Okay. Oh, my old friends Julia and Pamela. Pamela is actually a studio mate in St. John now. They created this wonderful zine a few years ago called Hard Times in the Maritimes. I do not have all the copies of this because by that point I think I had moved away. But I did contribute actually to the very first issue. I contributed, yeah, there it is, a comic called 40-Foot Limo that was about an actual thing that happened with my son and I when he was little. Our bus was pulled over by the police so they could take a guy off who was due in court. I was like, that is such a St. John story. So anyway, that's cool to find. I'm hoping to, since I'm moving back to St. John, I'm hoping to complete my collection of those, as well as Tempest, its predecessor. Here is, okay, so the Strange Adventures comic book shop here in Halifax, as you know, has been supporting the comics community for years. And they used to actually publish their own anthology. Here's issue number 4. And I guess I must have contributed to this. Yep, I contributed this story called H-Town, which is actually currently for sale in my original art sale. Oh, I see another story here as well. It was called Rock On. I think that one is also for sale. I see a story here from Sean Jordan. A couple stories. There's an old note from Cal. They give out contributor copies. Imagine. Here's some more prints from a few years ago. Some small ones. Some of these prints are actually available on my... I have a print service, well, me and many other artists, called InPrnt. INPRNT. So if you search that up, you can find nice gallery quality versions of this little reproduction of the Beep orange drink packaging from when I was a kid here in Nova Scotia. I believe Ontario may have had Beep as well. Absolute nightmare drink. This was a t-shirt design that I did for the using the old Microsoft Word for Mac logo. Silly. Here is a print I did commemorating the late great John Hillerman and his role of Higgins from the original Magnum PI. He looks a little Hitlery there. It's unfortunate. That's on me. That's not him. And then, this is a favorite one called Art Smarts. You'll see this in my portfolio. And that one is definitely available on the InPrnt site. Here's one that I did You may recall the Shepard Fairey Obama poster. I think it's Shepard Fairey, right? The Hope poster. I did a similar one afterwards for Remo Williams. That's Fred Ward, the late great Fred Ward. Another dumb 80s movie joke there. I should make prints of that, probably. And a few more prints from, I would say, about a dozen years ago. Proto Dalek is a cat riding a Roomba. I could see it going that way. I guess that's the only one. It was just a backing board in there. Okay. Speaking of Appa Centauri, here is a sticker that I made back when I created a website for the Appa. It says, "If it's not in print, it didn't really happen." I made that sweet kind of quill-looking logo for the Appa as well. Bit of a confusing logo, I think. It's kind of, I guess the power symbol here is like, hey, we've got a website now. Anyway, here is an old portfolio of mine from 2001. Wow, called Paper or Plastic. This is actually the booklet. It was a CD portfolio and had a corresponding kind of branding all over it. Using a lot of high contrast design, as I typically would. Here's my resume and some samples of writing and art. More samples. It's not a bad little portfolio, I guess. I probably got a little freelance work out of it. Okay, so a common thing for designers, for those who aren't already aware, is, I mean, it's not so common anymore because everything is done with digital tools. So you just save everything you make on a hard drive somewhere. But in the old days, and you might still do this just for your own amusement, in the old days you would have what was called a tear file, where you would keep tear sheets, which are basically just a physical copy of something you made, torn out of the magazine or the paper that it came in, because you don't have room to store a copy of every goddamn magazine you do an illustration for. So you just tear out a physical copy and put it in your portfolio files or whatever. So I got a bunch of tear sheets here. Here is a copy of, here's the front cover of Here magazine from St. John, 20 years ago, just over 20 years ago, 2005, volume 6, number 25. What do I have here? Probably an ad. Yep. I designed the identity system and a bunch of ads for a restaurant at the time called Sebastian. And this was, I believe, a pre-opening ad. A couple friends there. I think that's my friend Dree sitting there having a drink on the house. Why not? Here's another Sebastian ad for trying to demystify for people what the word comestibles means. I think that was confusing for people. Got a couple issues of the Coast Comics issue, which I contributed to. Whoops. I basically did a kind of one-panel comic about how expensive property was in the city. A situation that has not really changed. Lots of cool folks contributed to this. R.I.P. the Coast. Coast was a great employer for cartoonists at one time. So it was nice to see them do this. Jeez, I don't see my thing in here. Anyway, maybe I just grabbed a copy of this and maybe I'm not in this one. Okay, I'm not sure. I definitely contributed to an issue, just not sure if it's that one. Here's another issue of Here, volume 2, number 13. Here's a few more of them. I assume they're ones that I contributed comics or ads to. So let's see here. We got volume 2, number 10, volume 2, number 8, Volume 2, number 4, Volume 2, number 9, Volume 2, number 11, Volume 1, number 2. Wow, that's an early one. Oh, well, actually, Volume 1, number 1 as well. There's the first 2 issues of Here magazine, which I'm pretty sure I did not contribute to, so I probably just kept those out of historical interests. And these other ones about various preoccupations of the city. Bernard Lord. So yeah, I'm pretty sure I've got some comics in some of these. I'm starting to wonder if I am in fact crazy and hallucinated the whole thing. Oh, here's a story about the Comedy Nights improv group that I used to be in. So I assume that's why I kept that. Oh, and here's actually one of my comics. It's the first installment. This is probably the first one that I published in the paper, actually. It was a story called Doomed Love, The Morning After, about a guy who wakes up handcuffed to a bed, not knowing how he got there. And hilarity ensues. That's where my head was at the time. Another tear sheet from here, another back page ad in advance of opening, I guess. And another ad, looks like for brunch. Okay, so here's a, this is a prototype for an anthology that I never wound up publishing called Superior Comics and Stories, which obviously is meant to be a joke. I've never felt my comics were superior to anyone else's. But at the time I had a company, freelance design company called Superior Studio. And I think the idea was that it would be a publication of the studio somehow, or I don't know. I don't know why I even kept that prototype, except maybe I like the format, I guess. Here is an old DCAF program, not sure what year. Looks like 2017. Comic on the back by the great Monster Mike. And if this is the one I think it is, I would have contributed a picture for a, yeah, it was the 100th anniversary of Jack Kirby. So I sent in this illustration based on one of his drawings to contribute to the program. Another copy of it there. Here is another print referencing an old Ray Bradbury story. If you know, you know, as they say. Could probably stand to do a better illustration version of that. Here is a copy of one of the more recent comics that I've published called Hey Judas. It's from 2017, 2018, 2017. It's adapting a song by a punk folk musician named Carmeg DeForest, which was originally about Ronald Reagan. It's from the early 80s. And it's, basically, the song is basically talking to Judas, who betrayed Jesus, Jim Jones, the cult leader who fed everyone poison, Adolf Hitler, of course, famous madman, and then the fourth verse is about Reagan and what a huge asshole he was. All very fair. What I did with this one is to basically replace the Reagan verse with something about Trump. And it fit pretty well, honestly. A lot of historical echoing going on there. In fact, just today, Trump was threatening air traffic controllers. And I was like, wow. Anyway, so yeah, Hey Judas, that is available for free, I believe, through my website, because really hate Trump. Not shy about saying it. I hope he drops dead any second now. I hope this video makes him drop dead. Fuck you, Donnie. Anyway, next up, copy of Young, Dumb, and Full of Comics, book I published also about 2017, I think. It was kind of marking 25th anniversary of when I had started publishing comics. First publishing stuff like Dregs and all that stuff. So it's a pretty good collection of, I'd say, my favorite stuff over those years, curated into some themed chapters. Yeah, I'm pleased with how the book turned out. It was done through a print-on-demand service called CreateSpace, which is now owned by Amazon, if it even exists anymore. I don't know if it does. Future editions, I think I've got like maybe a dozen copies of this left from the last batch that I ordered. So future editions are going to be published by me in-house. So I'm looking forward to that. But I am pleased that that volume turned out as well as it did. And to the dozens of you who have bought copies at shows over the years, thank you. I did a podcast a few years ago with my lesbian friend, Nicole. This is a Christmas card that my friend Nicole and I made for our podcast. I am no longer a co-host. I did the first season, co-hosting and producing, and honestly, it really burned me out. I enjoyed doing the chat of it, but then I really hated listening to myself doing the editing and stuff, and we went long, some of those episodes. So Nicole very wisely has cut the number of episodes down in subsequent seasons, and has got a lot more help, I think, spreading the work around. So it's still ongoing. I'm not sure if there is a new season for this year or not, but there have been a couple the last couple years, and I highly recommend Podcast in a Queer Tree if you enjoy Hallmark movies, which is what it was about. And I did a corresponding website and this advent calendar of the movies that we watched that was kind of revealed more or less day by day as we went. That turned out well. That came from, that was a Vistaprint thing. And here's a program from my second marriage that I designed, but I'm not going to show you that. It just makes me sad. A few more copies of the Podcast in a Queer Tree greeting card. Oh, there's a few more. There's some mini comics and stuff. One of my more recent mini comics called As Seen on Your Nana's Wall. It's basically just a kind of themed bunch of illustrations of different things that I absolutely did see on my Nana's wall when I was a kid. Some of them are a little sinister, but, you know, sometimes the grown-ups have stuff going on that we kids don't realize. Here's a couple photo zines called Spaces Between. The first issue is photos of places in Toronto, and the second issue is photos of places in St. John. Both places that I have lived at one time or another. And I took these with a digital camera that was gifted to me years ago. I didn't really ever get into photography very deeply, so this was kind of a project to kind of get me out and about to do something. And what I kind of enjoyed doing was taking pictures of the spaces between buildings, alleyways, kind of forgotten places, right? So I did that for a couple years, I guess. I have more photos. I never really got organized to do one for like Halifax or Dartmouth, which was my intention. Maybe before I leave, I'll do that because I did enjoy making the photo zines. They turned out better than I would have expected. Here's a zine that very few people have or have seen. It's called Always Drawing Faces, and it's basically just a little zine of me randomly drawing faces of people. Here's Keith David. Some of these are just, made up people, of course, that I was just drawing at the time. Here's Gord Downey before he passed, and a birdhouse in Tidehead, New Brunswick. There's one of dear old Peanut Butter, my cat. And Batman and Spider-Man and my friend Kate. So there you go. Anyway, I'm always planning on doing another expanded volume of this with a corresponding volume called Sometimes Also Butts, which would be the more kind of sexy stuff, but we'll see. This is a little bit of merch that I made for a webcomic that I did many years ago called Entropia. It was a sticker of the main character and pretty much his overriding theme. His problem was that he felt burdened by creativity, and what he's saying there is, I have a duty to tell stories. I may have identified with him a little bit at one time. Here's an old business card for my another old freelance company, Omakase. A business card that drove people crazy because it was square. It was printed on just like a vellum, I guess. It's like a hard plastic. Okay, here's a few plays. Actually, I guess it's mostly just a few copies of a few plays, but here's one called Chain Reaction. It was kind of a one-act play about I want to say murder investigation? It was very serious. Every so often I think about revisiting it and maybe workshopping it out into a longer piece, because it's kind of got kind of a breakneck pace as it is. Here's an old favorite. Copies of the Three Burglars, which I think was my first one-act play that I wrote. 2002? Wow. And it's about... It's basically a locked room murder mystery with a bunch of characters named after cartoonists, Cole and Kane and Steranko, and it involves the mysterious disappearance of something valuable in a Vegas casino, and there's kind of a fun twist resolution, maybe, sort of. I feel like these days people would see it coming, but it's another one that I've thought about revisiting and maybe turning into a comic instead. That's actually how a lot of my plays started out. They were comics that I never got around to drawing. So pretty influenced by Quentin Tarantino as well, I would say, back in 2002. And I actually, I was also doing a bit of acting back then. I originated the role of Mumbles, the mime, in this play, partly because I felt it would be kind of a crap role for anybody else to have to play. But I enjoyed it. Mumbles was a disgruntled mime. He would just sit there smoking and sneering at people. He's the first to die in the play. So I spent most of my time just under a tarp in the play. I think that was the other reason I wanted to play the role, because I was like, what a shitty job for someone else to have to do. And here's another one, another kind of playing card themed play called Solitaire, which is kind of a Twilight Zone-y story about two people in a mysterious place sheltering from the rain and talking about stuff. Got some copies of, here's a copy of The Coast with Kate Beaton on the cover for a previous DCAF. What year was this? 2016. Cool. So I think I probably, yeah, I'm pretty sure I exhibited at that DCAF. But I don't think, I think I just kept this as a souvenir. I don't think I have anything in it. Same with this, kept a souvenir of the Halifax pop explosion from that year. Oh, here's an old issue of Broken Pencil. I must have kept this because I'm in it. It's 20th anniversary issue? Maybe I just kept it because it's the 20th anniversary issue. These guys sadly are no longer publishing. And I'm not sure what's happening. I know that there has been discussion of maybe not reviving this particular magazine, but some other kind of zine reviewing or, you know, zine news website, or I don't know. Oh, nice. Magical Beatdown by Jen Woodall is reviewed in here. Oh, no, I actually do have something in here. Oh, that's cool. The review for Doing the Dishes with Batman, which I did when I was living in Kingston. Oh, that's nice. Half the time when I would send them stuff for review, they would not do anything. So here's another issue from, it's issue 73, fall 2016. So yeah, they may have actually just started sending me copies. Well, they did at one time. Don't know if I have anything being reviewed in here. Yep. There's a review of Flavor Country, which was kind of a one-shot of short comics that I did at the time, also in Kingston. So a couple reviews there in Broken Pencil. Oh, wow, this is old. 1992, a few issues of papers that my old friend Tony published back in Fredericton when I was living there. Marketplace News. And I did comics for him for the exposure. And as something of a favor, I had a bit of a crush on Tony. I don't think I really realized it at the time. Sweet guy. Yes, I think I have. I'm not really sure what Marketplace News was meant to be, apart from just kind of an avenue for local businesses to advertise to. It was like a free paper, I think. So, you know, you'd have your classifieds and lots of ads from local businesses and a few somewhat relevant articles, perhaps. Okay. I just kept this out of interest, I guess. I don't think I wrote or illustrated anything there. This artist looks really familiar, though. Anyway, so there's another issue here, which I'm guessing is one that I did contribute to. Try not to tear it. The old newsprint likes to fall apart. And there's a couple more issues of a different paper. I'm guessing, yeah, I'm guessing this replaced the Marketplace News, called the Central New Brunswick Journal, also edited by Tony. I think it was pretty much the same intention, local ads and so on, but with maybe more of a news angle, community events, that kind of thing. Oh, yep. There's a copy of a comic that I did called Walter. I barely remember this. I did a different comic featuring Walter, where it was basically about a guy, you know, just kind of losing his concentration and imagining stuff at his boring job. Walter Mitty, obviously, is what that is based on. So I guess I must have decided to do a little spin-off newspaper strip style version of it for Tony there. Did not last long. Was not good. Here's a couple more issues of Dregs at magazine size. Issue number 6, as well as a collection called Desert Island Dregs, which I think was collecting kind of my favorite stuff from all 6 issues. And here's a copy of number 5 with its ingenious 2-color cover. And oh, I see. Yeah, there's a copy of the first printing, which had the color cover, and second printing, which did not, because I no longer had access to that photocopier. Now we're getting into some old stuff. These are original issues of Dregs, my very first mini comic. Cover dated January 94. Yeah, actually, these are the 4 original issues with their color covers. Well, actually, I guess, yeah, that's like a gray color cover. Gray paper. So there's issue 1, issue 2, issue 3, and issue 4. And then I did second printings of those, but the colors, or the covers, were not color. So I basically kept a copy of each of those for my files. Much of that is reprinted in the book that I showed you earlier. And anything that is not reprinted in that book, you probably don't want to see. Here's a couple file copies of a couple of zines. The aforementioned Flavor Country, with my little tribute to Audrey Horne from Twin Peaks. Back cover is a comic that I did about the old folk rock musician Al Stewart, called Year of the Cad. And then there's just some other kind of largely autobiographical comics in here, I think. Oh, yeah, there's 40-Foot Limo again from the hell was that called? Anyway. And here is the one and only issue of a zine I did called Forgotten Heroes. There's the Remo Williams cover again, Megaforce on the back, and it's basically a zine all about the terrible one-off franchise failures of my youth, including Condor Man, The Return of Captain Invincible, Megaforce, Remo, The Adventure Begins, Flash Gordon, the 1980 Flash Gordon, and Buckaroo Banzai, which of course is not a failure at all. It's a great movie, but the second one never did quite. The second one that they promised never did happen, sadly. We'll have to settle for Big Trouble in Little China. That's as close as we're likely to get. Here's a file copy of an ad for the last issue of Dregs. File copy of Strange Adventures Comics Anthology number 5, Summer 96. I assume I had something in here. There's Monique Renee. Great story. Great artist from Fredericton. Who else we got in here? Eric Como. Don't recognize that name. Art's good though. Jay Silver and Dave Howlett. Of course. Paul Beal. Oh, Louis Little. Loved his stuff. Very EC Comics inspired artist. Don't know what he's up to, but he did some cool stuff in the 90s. Just looking to see what, if anything, I contributed to this. Might not have been anything, I don't know. I have some other issues of this in my zine collection, but if it's here in the bin, it's generally going to be something that I contributed to. There's a couple of drawings that I definitely contributed. Yeah, there's a couple more in there as well. So it looks like I just contributed those illustrations, not any actual comics to that one. Let's see, here's the one and only issue of Microdose, which is the last kind of short comics anthology that I published back in 2019. Man. Yep. The overriding theme of this was that everything was only one page long, I think, with the exception of the center spread, which is kind of a conceptual thing, and can actually only be experienced in with a physical copy. You can't really make a digital copy of the center spread of Microdose, which is fun. I mean, I guess you could simulate it. But here's the first issue of Proxima. You saw the second issue earlier. About 40 pages of comics from local folks. I took it as a way to continue my old Apazine, which I called Regular Zine. Well, that was my last old Apazine title. So I did kind of a regular Apazine, just illustrated by whatever I was drawing at the time. There's a drawing of a lamp my former father-in-law made. Nice lamp. Here's some old stuff. Those of you who were just here for HalCon Some of you may be old like me and have issues of this kicking around. Comstar magazine from 1991. This is volume 1, issue 8. Ooh. I'm in the credits here under typing and contributing articles. So yeah, this was a zine that was created at Acadia, where I went to college. Looks like I have just an article in here reviewing some comics. Okay. I don't know if I wasn't even really making art at that point, so I was just writing stuff for Comstar magazine, I guess. So I got a bunch of those. Issue 7, issue 4. This might be the first issue. It's a much smaller staff. The editor, Brian McGee, is somebody I went to college with. He owes me $50 last I checked. ComstaarEast, Volume 1, Issue 2, Issue 3, Volume 1, Issue 2 again. That's funny. September 1990. They must have... I think what they really meant was Volume 2, Issue 1. But anyway. I'm in the credits for interior art for this one. I definitely drew this ivory tower illustration. I remember doing that in art class. I'm not sure if I did anything else. Here's an ad for my favorite old video store, Light and Shadow Video in Wolfville. Long gone, I'm sure, but that guy pointed me in a lot of good directions for movies. ComstaarEast, Volume 1, Issue 6. So I basically seem to have 8 or 10 issues of ComstaarEast magazine there. Here is, I don't know why I did this exactly, but I did a magazine-sized reprint of the first issue of Dregs. Maybe just to see what it would look like. I have a couple copies of that. And here's another couple more copies of the magazine-sized 5 and 6, issues 5 and 6 of Dregs. Here's a long box, a card long box. This is story mode. I made a card game about 10 years ago. It's called Story Mode, and it is basically a flexible system for generating ideas for stories, or you can just play it Pokemon style. It had 4 themed decks for Westerns, Shakespeare, Pulp Fiction, and young adult stuff. And then you would have different kinds of cards, so the kinds of stuff that you would find in stories. So this card is a prop for a Western story. It's a deed to the farm. And it has a kind of Pokemon card value there of 3, if that's how you want to play it. Here's one for cats. It has special properties, +1 for each cat that you own. So that's cool. Anyway, I had a lot of fun making this. This is the alpha version of the game. Every so often I think about actually leveling up and creating a beta version which would be more playable, printed on actual, cards, playing cards kind of things. That obviously would be a little more expensive and would be a certain amount of effort. for me to dig through the files and update the cards and do more play testing. Like, this is all very kind of rough first draft, this version. But I may yet do it. I'm very interested in making games. Yeah, and the people who did play story mode, I got some fun feedback from them. Some people really enjoyed it, so hey, why not? Here's a little a little mini comic that I made promoting Entropia, my old web comic, and it's basically just catching people up on what it's about with some sample pictures that had been done at that point. Fun little zine there. Here's another play that I'm pretty sure was never performed. Might have been read at one of the St. John Theatre Company's second stage kind of script development reading nights. It's called She Loves You, and it's about a young musician fretting over his relationship. I actually just skimmed through it the other day when I found this bin, and it's not great. I think it's probably just as well that we don't produce that one. Here's my file copy of a calendar that I made as a freelance artist, a poster calendar for the Workers' Health and Safety folks, 2008. It was a good job. I was writing articles, freelance articles for the Telegraph a while back. Here is a writer. Here is a little article that I did about the trend at the time of kind of calorie portion snacks. You kind of couldn't go anywhere for a little while without finding like chocolate bars that were this big but only had 100 calories. Like, I don't know if they still do that, but it annoyed me, so I wrote an article like a white guy would. Here's another one about this is actually about cord cutting and getting rid of cable in order to stream, or I mean, it wasn't even really streaming back then, but torrenting and whatever else was available at the time. Here's a little poster that I made up for a party that did not really go over as well as the Patrick Swayze Christmas parties, Halloweener Fest. I mean, the name alone is pretty terrible, but it was basically going to be horror movies and hot dogs, a bunch of different types of hot dogs. I bought so many hot dogs, it was bad. Here is something from the Gleaner, which was a Fredericton, New Brunswick paper. I see we have there's some kind of stuff here about. Oh, okay. I have this because it's a newspaper ad that I designed for Kent at the time. Just a file copy. Those were the days. I believe I contributed a review to this old zine called The Web, which was children's literature themed. I was very interested, and I still am really in, especially young adult literature, I guess. It was kind of one of my areas of focus in college and my literature degrees, I guess because there's also so much overlap with comics and illustration, right? So what did I contribute to this? Not really sure. Oh, okay. I contributed a review of Understanding Comics by Scott McCloud. Relevant in the spring of 1995. some kind of deck of cards in here. I assume it's story mode. Yeah. Yeah, this is kind of a prototype deck for story mode. I might have been starting to think about what a beta version would look like, so I just kind of kept that together as a concept deck. Okay, bunch of old mini comics. Getting right, not quite at the bottom yet, but we're getting there. So, mini comics. Parabola number 1. This is a favorite. It's called Relativity. Some of my favorite art from back then. The story of being discovered by an alien culture who send an envoy, shall we say, to communicate with their new friends, but space is big, and it takes a long time. And that's what that's about. The original art for that is actually for sale right now. Here's a little promotional mini comic for The Insult, my beliked old webcomic. And it's basically just one of the Insult stories. But it's done in the style of a chick tract, if you're familiar with the gross little religious tract that the Jack Chick Company has published for some decades now. Here's a copy of the aforementioned Doing the Dishes with Batman. Fun little mini comic, which is both actually instructional about, a good method for doing your dishes if you have to do them by hand. And also there's a bit of a breakthrough for our friend Batman there. Here is a collection called Back Issues of political cartoons that I did for my friend Mike's web magazine nearly, 10 years ago? 20 years ago. Holy fuck, Mike. Anyway, some fun stuff in here. It was very weird and challenging doing political cartoons, not something that I ordinarily do. Here's probably my favorite one, called Justin Trudeau, Worst Wingman Ever. Because at the time, he was going around with a candidate named Gerard Kennedy, and all the liberal voters were like, "When are you going to run, Justin? Are you going to run?" And he's like, "Oh no, I don't want to run." Anyway, folding funnies. A little formal experiment here, and the idea, this is a single-page, double-sided comic, for those of you who like weird formats. What you do is you fold it all up, keep folding until it's just this. That's the cover. And then you start unfolding. And as you unfold, you read the story until at the very end, spoiler alert, you get hit by a train. That was fun. Did that in 1993. It was a quarter. Kind of thing that people love to pick up at a convention table. I should do a bunch of those. Here's another song adaptation, Stolen Car by the Rheostatics. Crazy kind of widescreen format. This original art is also for sale. I sent a copy to the band, actually, and they very kindly sent a card back saying that they enjoyed it. And I've since have chatted with Dave Bedini a couple times for one reason or another. Lent him a power supply for his Mac when he came to St. John once. Anyway, another favorite. I don't think the art is the best, but I was definitely kind of stretching, trying to get better. This is from 1999, I guess. Here's another one-shot from 2012. I didn't realize it was that recent. called the 5 Second Summer Fun Special. And it was kind of tied in with 5 Seconds of Decision, which was an art project that my friend Judd and some other people were doing at that summer. So I basically took the opportunity to I had a laser printer at that time that I could run this kind of newsprint through, and I basically wanted to simulate an Archie Comics style little comic book, digest size. I think that's the dimensions of it. So that was fun. I basically made up a little fictional band and wrote a couple of songs for them, and there's a little ad on the back there for my webcomic at the time, Time Wounds All Heals, which has turned out to play a rather large role in my creative life anyway. A couple more file copies of mini comics here. The first issue of one and only issue of a series called Yeah, That Happened, which was autobiographical. This is the story of me in college running a follow spot for a film from Quebec when they did a crew from Quebec, I should say, when they filmed a special for Quebec television in Grand Pré, near where I went to college. And because I was the head of I was the technical director for the student union at the time, so they basically called me and they were like, do we have any local people who could do this? And I was like, well, I can do it. So I got to wear a headset and listen to a bunch of French Union guys from the CBC chattering on about the show. And as shown on the back here, I later saw the show when I happened to be randomly watching TV at my grandmother's, and I was in the credits with a bunch of those French dudes. It was fun. Second issue of Parabola, a mini comic series that only had 2 issues really. Another song adaptation called The Man Who Couldn't Cry. The song is written by Loudon Wainwright III, dad of Rufus and Martha, husband of Kate McGarrigle, I believe. Anyway, great songwriter, country, mostly known as a country songwriter, I think, probably country folk. Anyway, this song, The Man Who Couldn't Cry, is covered by Johnny Cash on one of his American Recordings albums, and that's what really inspired this adaptation. Published by yet another old freelance company of mine, Centauri Studio, named after Appa Centauri, which I was still very much involved in. And finally, I think this is the last of the mini comics, You're Not Fooling Anyone, which is one that I have thought about remaking with just kind of better artwork numerous times. It's an anti-gun comic, basically, and I did it as a reaction to the Columbine massacre. How quaint that seems now. Things have definitely not gotten any better as far as gun control in the US of A. And of course, since then, this was in 1999, since then, during the pandemic, Nova Scotia had its own mass shooter event with guns and ammo supplied by the US of A. Sure is awesome living next to them. Anyway, so another copy, I assume just another file copy of Dregs number 5? Yeah. And it's in here with a copy of my master's thesis, which I guess, yeah, I mean, it makes sense to keep a reference copy there. Every so often I think about publishing that too, updating it a bit. It was about comics, but honestly, if you've read Understanding Comics, I don't think there's anything that I'm telling you in there that you haven't already figured out. I basically for those who care about academic stuff at all, I basically took linguistic theory from Noam Chomsky. He invented a system of analysis called transformational generative grammar that would break down grammar into, for example, noun phrases, verb phrases, each of which has its own components, and how you put them together creates a syntax in any given language. And you could kind of use this as a method to reverse engineer a language to try and understand it. If you don't already, like if you're translating, if you're trying to understand a language from some tribe that you've just encountered for the first time, that's really what was the intention for Chomsky's theory, I believe. I basically had the idea of adding a visual track to it, and otherwise kind of using the same approach. But the way the visual track manifests was through what I called a blueprint method of deconstructing comics, kind of creating maps of how imagery gets tracked through a comic, for example. My guinea pig for this, for the most part, I did it for a few comics of various degrees of complexity, but my real focus for the thesis was Watchmen, which was a relatively new book at the time. And people in my department were like, I'm sorry, you're doing a thesis about comic books? And yeah, they were real dicks about it. Some of them, not everyone. Anyway, I got the degree and really did a deep dive on Watchmen at the time. And I was assisted, actually, with the internet at a time when people were not using the internet for academic purposes a whole lot, apart from computer scientists. I went into the rec.arts.comics Usenet news group, which, as you can imagine, discussed Watchmen pretty extensively, issue by issue. So it was actually pretty fascinating to read those conversations as people speculated what was about to happen, and to see like themes raised that they were incorrect about, maybe. Or anyway, different times. It's got a few more just kind of random things here. Got a bunch more. I got some more story mode stuff. This one is labeled reference text. So I think this is basically just a copy of every card all in one place. Just so I always have a reference for it. And I think these are just a few more extra copies. Yeah, here's a first printing of the alpha game. I had it printed by a local printer, and I think they did the trimming as well. Again, if I am to do a new version of story mode, I'd probably do it in-house. I do enjoy that. Okay, so I basically just got a small stack of random stuff here. Let's go through it. Sebastian ad card. 2007-2008 Sea Dogs hockey brochure. I did that as a freelancer for probably Media Planet or whoever was doing that. See my old friend, I think that's my old friend Derek, the former owner of Media Planet, eating nachos. This was a little promo card I did for a blog that I did called Sunday Night in Cinema 3. Cloverfield was one of the movies. Basically, every week I went to a movie theater and watched, same time, Sunday evening, whatever the last show was of the night in Cinema 3, I watched it whatever it was, and then blogged about it. And I really patted myself on the back for the first few weeks, thinking, hey, this is a great idea for a blog. And then in July, I had to watch What Happens in Vegas for 4 straight weeks. So, really owned myself there. Another copy of this guy. Christmas card from my freelance business, kind of echoing the omakase theme there. Also have a tattoo of that Zen circle. Here's another Entropia promotional sticker for Omega Mart, the that world's kind of version of Walmart. Pretty much the only place you can buy anything, and their slogan is "Consume and Live." Here's a promotional sticker for another blog I did for a little bit called Open Source Inspiration. It's kind of me thinking about Buddhist stuff. Here's a memorial card for my dad after he died from his funeral in 2019. There's a sketch I kept of the game board that I submitted to the magazine. Remember? It's a copy of a zine that I did called Ad Nauseum, and it's basically just reprinting old comic book ads. I've scanned hundreds of comic book ads at this point, and I'm going to be putting them up on my Patreon just as a kind of historical academic project. And some of the more outrageous ones I'll probably print up into zines like this for your amusement. Let's see, another copy of Solitaire. Some more plays here. Just going to sort through the ones that I've already showed you. Okay. So, more plays. Photoshop time. One-act play, starred my friends Jason and Alex. Sort of autobiographical, I guess, about the phenomenon of being in a job as a graphic designer, working on something all day, feeling like you have not changed anything and have nothing to show for it, and you've gotten sucked into Photoshop so hard that time has passed and you didn't even realize. That's kind of the device in this play. The main character keeps like losing bigger and bigger gaps of time. There's also a half-assed love story in there and some fun jokes and a half-assed story about queerness that could probably stand a bit of updating. But I think people enjoyed it for the most part. Here's another one, another comedy called The Doomsday Clock, about a couple who decide to try an open relationship, but they fail to maintain the very important communication that you would need to maintain in such a relationship. And comedy ensues. Here is, I think, my only full-length play, full-length meaning not a single act. It's called An Otherworld, and obviously that's a joke on the old soap opera title Another World, which, we all watched as Maritime kids growing up with our nans. There is a real bit of soap opera lore, and I used to watch soaps when I was a teen with my girlfriend, and later on, I'd say into my early 20s, I watched As the World Turns mostly. There is an actual bit of soap opera lore about a character, I think, on All My Children, who went upstairs to get his skis or something, and then the actor, well, the character was just written off the show, as you sometimes did on soaps back then. You know, actor was no longer available. If the character was just kind of supporting and not in one of the, you know, kind of main storylines, perhaps they're just kind of in the background, you might just write them off. Or maybe what was often the case, since so many soaps were made in New York, some actors would no longer be available for a period of time because they were in a play or something, and then the play would close and they'd be back. So anyway, this character went up to the attic and never came down. And every once in a while, they would even reference it on the show. They'd say, "Oh, say hi to what's his name when you're up there," if somebody else was going up into the attic. So the premise of this play and Otherworld is a man wakes up in an attic, no idea how he got there, doesn't remember anything, including his own name, and he comes downstairs and finds himself in a very soap opera world where things are running on soap opera logic, and he kind of becomes the new hotness in this fictional town where the play happens, just because of the insane weirdness of waking up in the attic. And so everyone kind of starts to coalesce around him, because that's where the story is. It's got a very sinister kind of element to it that I always enjoyed. And it's one of those that, again, I don't think it was originally conceived as a comic, but I have since thought about adapting it into comics. Maybe I will. The ending's a bit weak, in my opinion. It was never actually staged. We did a reading for it in the second stage program, but it's never actually been performed, I don't think. Just kind of a script in hand reading, but it was fun. Couple issues of Alpha, unfortunately named Arts Magazine from Acadia, that I contributed poems to when I was in my first year creative writing class, and I will not be reading those to you. They are terrible. Here is the trade paperback of The Insult, the aforementioned Be-Liked webcomic. Probably the most popular thing I've ever done, actually. At one point, there were, I think, thousands of people subscribed to it, so that's fun. Every installment is basically just me rewriting the old ad copy for the insult that made a man out of Mac. The old ad for what was his name? Charles Atlas bodybuilding company, which I think still exists, and they very kindly have never sued me over this. Probably because, like, I'm not really insulting Charles Atlas in any way. It's really more just this bizarre ad that they made back in the 50s, I think, that ran for decades. Anyway, every so often I still make new installments of The Insult. I made one just a few weeks ago, and I post them on my Patreon. At some point, I've only got a few copies left of that one, so at some point I will do a new edition that collects any subsequent ones, and if you've got one of the older ones, you'll be able to trade in for the new one. That is nearly it. The last two things I've got are copies of more plays. That's just a nicer edition of Otherworld that I did through CreateSpace. And this is a collection of both Photoshop Time and the Doomsday Clock, since they're both kind of time themed. I put them in a book together called Timing is Everything, a collection of 2 one-act plays. And that's out of print. They're both of those editions are out of print, although I suppose you could just order them from Amazon if you really wanted one. Again, I'll probably do kind of my own edition in the future when I have the proper gear, which hopefully will be not too long from now. So that'll be a project probably for the next year or two. I'm actually coming up on the 10th anniversary of many of these publications, so I might do some new editions of some of those. And that's it. That's the bin. Wild. Some crazy old stuff in there. Hope you enjoyed it. I'll be back to rifling through comics next time, and comics that I didn't make for the most part. And thanks for watching.